I'm Ed Adams, and this is the Weekly Genealogy Toolkit, the podcast that helps new genealogists get the most out of their research time and avoid the most common pitfalls. Are you the kind of person who reads instructions when assembling IKEA furniture? Or are you the kind of person who just starts lining up tabs with slots? I feel like the go-it-your-own thing is usually an attribute associated with men, but it's never been me. All the way back to my Lego days, I've been a meticulous instruction follower. There's something kind of zen about tackling a big project, little step by little step. I don't drive long distances without my navigation set up, and I definitely don't try to assemble that unpronounceable shelf system from IKEA without the instructions out and open. That's odd, though, because for years, that's how I was doing genealogy. I never read the descriptions of the sources I was using. I may have noticed that block of text to the side or below the search fields, but I never paid much attention to it. I mean, I could read the source title, and most sources have reasonably descriptive titles like Virginia, U.S. Personal Property Tax Records, 1782 to 1900. What else do I really need to know before getting started? No, it wasn't until well into my family history work that I scrolled down and read the description of one of the sources that I was using. I remember having real mixed emotions. I was excited at how much useful information was there, but I also had this sinking feeling about how much time I'd probably wasted over the years because I hadn't been reading them. So let's get started and look at the kind of stuff that you'll find in your source descriptions that can really help you avoid wasting time and hone in more closely on those sources that could be your next goldmine. We may as well start with the example that I gave in the intro. This record collection is indeed about Virginia personal property tax records, and they do cover from 1782 to 1900, but there's some more information that you could use that you'll only find in the description. In most descriptions, there will be a section that talks about the kind of information that you'll likely find: names, residence locations, taxes paid. In this case, you'll also learn about the number of enslaved people right along with the types of farm animals owned. It's a grim reminder of the psychological brutality of slavery. It goes on to explain that beginning in 1890, black people included in taxation were actually listed in a separate section of the tax books, and you might have to look further into the books if you can't find them listed in the rest of the records. That's a pretty vital bit of information if the ancestor you're looking for was black. It also says that due to legislation, tax records don't exist for 1808 and 1864. I always appreciate learning things like that up front, so I don't waste time looking for things that don't exist. One thing that I like about how Ancestry structures their source overviews is they also have related collections in a box to the right. So that way, if after reading the description you decide that this isn't really the source that you want to go through, or if you're done looking through it and you're ready to look for the next source to work with, they're going to have some good candidates for you right there next to the description. Going back to the description having information about what's there as well as what's not there, have a look at the description for the Georgia Marriages 1699 to 1914 collection on Ancestry. It says right up front, despite the title of the collection being Georgia Marriages, it only contains marriage information from selected areas of Georgia. Furthermore, not every county covered will be covered for the entire 1699 to 1944 time frame. Thankfully, in the description, it lists what counties were covered and what years were available for each county. But these are records that many of us aren't using on a daily basis, so maybe it would be more intuitive to you to read the description of a record collection that you're unfamiliar with. What about the U.S. Federal Census collection, though? Is there anything in the descriptions that might be helpful? Well, yes. Looking at the 1950 census description, it mentions enumeration district maps that are available. More on that in a bit. It also gives some details about people you won't be finding in the normal population schedules that we're accustomed to looking at. Namely, service members living abroad, not in American territories, are not available. And Native Americans living on reservations were listed separately on the Indian reservation schedules. About those enumeration district maps. You used to be able to find these on Ancestry with a neat little 1950 enumeration district finder, but as far as I can tell, they've removed this feature. I don't know if it's coming back or what, but don't worry because you can still use Steve Morse's enumeration districts finder tool on stevemorse.org, and the map images themselves are available on the National Archives website. Another pretty common source is the various national Find-A-Grave indexes. Lots of folks use these whether they're familiar with the Find-A-Grave website or not. It's got such great, seemingly authoritative information sometimes. But when you read that description, you notice that the individual records were created by volunteers who submitted information to the website. This puts the information here as little better than the shared family tree. Yes, photos of headstones lend a degree of credibility, but you have to determine when the stone was produced, as many people have, for whatever reason, had replacement headstones made for ancestors whose stones were severely worn, and have at times taken slight liberties with the facts. Additionally, I have contacted cemetery caretakers for additional information about particular burials listed on Find a Grave, only to discover that that individual isn't buried anywhere in the cemetery, so just be mindful. Some collections aren't immediately digestible by the casual researcher. If you've ever looked at Revolutionary War or Civil War compiled service records, without a background in the military or military history, you may not fully understand what you're looking at. For this example in particular, the descriptions for these collections are much more thorough on Fold 3 than on Ancestry. The description for the Revolutionary War service records on Fold 3 is great, and explains in detail exactly how to find what you're looking for, and even goes over a bit of how to understand what you find. Not every genealogy website takes collection descriptions so seriously, though. MyHeritage is really lackluster with theirs. While some of their rarer collections have decent descriptions, most are very short and focus more on interesting tidbits of information about their collection rather than focusing on information that will be useful to the researcher. But to be fair, although Ancestry's descriptions are usually pretty good, there are collections over there that have functionally no description at all, so everyone could be doing a little bit better. Who really blows descriptions out of the water, though, are Family Search. Most of their searchable collections will have a button on the search page that says something like, "How to use this collection." If you click on that, it will take you to a wiki page all about that particular source that goes way beyond just description. Most of them are full-on strategy guides about how to best use that source and other places that have similar information. If you start going down the Family Search wiki rabbit hole, the next time you come up for air, you probably won't be a beginning genealogist anymore. It's really great, and that's why I refer to it so frequently. But I hope you start at least having a quick look at the source descriptions as you're working your way through your family tree. You'll learn a lot about the sources that you use all the time, and whenever you're digging into a new source, you'll get up to speed on how to use that source that much more quickly. So that's it. It's a real quick tip for this week. If you're listening from the United States, I hope you had a pleasant Thanksgiving holiday. We had a great one at my house, and now I've got to work off all those extra calories before I add some more for Christmas. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.